The Varsity Cup Final is here. Marties versus Ikeys at the iconic Danie Craven Stadium in Stellenbosch. Two proud universities, a fierce rivalry, and one night to decide it all. To help break it down, I sat with someone who knows this competition better than almost anyone. Tom Dawson-Squibb. He coached the Ikeys for 4 seasons, leading them to 3 finals and a semi-final. He's seen the highs, the heartbreaks, and everything in between. He's also worked closely with many of these players and coaches involved in tomorrow's final, so there's the real edge to what he brings to the table in this video. We deep dive into his thoughts on both camps this week, what the mood will be like, and how they'll approach this game, and the tactics that could swing it. We also unpack the pressure of the final, the intensity of the Ikeys-Marties rivalry, and what makes Marties such a tough team to beat, especially at home. Before we get into the video, leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and leave your score prediction below for the final tomorrow and what you think of the video. Let's get into it.
Tom,
Speak to me.
Varsity Cup Final this Monday.
It is.
There isn't a better man to talk about this fixture in this competition than you. Chat us through it. It's been an interesting season, I think, for Marties, and we chatted briefly about it, and you will get into a little bit more. But 7 played, 6 losses, 1 loss against Ticks. UCT played 7, lost 2. Got a shock loss against CUT. And then lost to Marties at home, away. Chat us through, what have you noticed this season? I think let's maybe start with UCT. Or let's start with Marties, and then we can get into UCT.
Yeah, I think Marties is a good one to start with. I think they're a team that's gone back to the Marties of old, in a way. That's not taking anything away from their attack, but they're the strongest defence in the competition. They've based their game around really playing no rugby in their own half. They kick really well. That Van Heerden Smith kicks exceptionally well, and then they kick really good contestables off their 2 9s that they've had, and then they defend well. So it's interesting. We always used to, when we played against Poch, the Eagles, their quality, their tackling was incredible. And when I watched Marties this year, I'm like, wow, they've got to that level of their quality. Their tackle is amazing. So you get the sense with Marties, a team that knows exactly how they're trying to play, and they look really connected and bought into that. Consistently bought into that. So credit to Kabamba and Craig Barry and Cornet for what they've created there, in having a really tight team who is super clear on what they do and their identity.
If teams know what Marties are going to do, why is it so hard to stop?
Yeah, I mean, it's the old one, it was in 2010, Henneke Meyer was the coach of the Bulls, and they had this mantra, which was execution above innovation. Sure. And it was written in their thing, and it was in their change room, it was we're not trying to be fancy, here's our game plan, good luck stopping us. And I think Marties have almost done that, it's one thing knowing what they're gonna do, but Marties are trying to put you under pressure. So they'll play in your half, you get excited and you try and be fancy, and they'll put you under pressure with their defense and with their kicking game. They'll win a penalty, they'll kick the corner, and they've got a strong maul. It's not rocket science, and a lot of teams can win playing rugby like that. I think I feel in a way that they've played 8 finals already, and not so much because of the pressure, but because of the rugby that they play. Someone said to me, Marties play no rugby, and I said, rubbish. I said, Marties are very clear around how they're trying to play, and I think it's a real credit to them, and that makes them hard to beat, because they're going to make fewer errors. I think they have got fallibilities in their game as well, which I think some Tucks exploited. And I think
go through those. What do you?
I think UCT in some ways exploited them. UCT, I felt, were their own worst enemies against Smarties in that first game. They were up, they looked good, and they just kept running into the wall. Without getting overly technical, I think if you're going to just keep running at Marties, they're going to keep hitting you. And actually a clever use of kicking game, a clever use of your set piece, if you can get some scrum dominance, or you can get even a little bit of maul dominance yourself and get behind them, then it becomes a different story. So how do you get behind them? A line break or a chip kick or clever use of kicking game, and I think you saw little fractions of that in the UCT game, but probably not enough. So my sense is, if you can get behind Marties, it's difficult, and I think if you can get ahead of them on the scoreboard, they haven't shown a likelihood or propensity to come back, and I think it would be quite tough in a final, the way they play, to come back from behind.
I find Marties have always done really well, and why I think they've taken finals previously is they've actually taken their points. I know it sounds as silly as that, but on Monday against Shimlers, the first 3 penalties they took 3, so they went 9-0 up, and I think the difference at the final whistle was 12 points.
Yeah.
And Shimlers were attacking on their 22, a couple of penalties, you could draw the game and go into extra time. So I think, do you think UCT? I know UCT tend to play sort of a little bit more expansive. Do you think they'll go take their points? I mean, we'll get into what you thought UCT have done well this year.
No, I think they will take their points. So obviously, I know how Robbie Fleck thinks, and they've gotten to Kozo Makaza, who's dead-eyed dick, so he's not going to miss too much. So I think in a final, I think they'll take their points a lot. I think both teams will. That Van Heerden Smith's a good kicker, Makaza's a good kicker, so that's nice to see. I think they'll both take their points. I think you never want to deviate too far from your identity. It's a big risk if you get into a playoff game and now you're trying to do things that are completely different. UCT, the attacking side, if you look at the points scored, Marty's the defensive side. Not that they haven't scored points, but they score them differently. So I think UCT will be clever. What UCT will try and do is, if you can stop Marty's getting what we call entries, so entries into the 22. How do they get entries into the 22? They can either run it in there, or they can win penalties and kick it in there. If you can give Marty's less than, I'd say, 8 penalties in the game, I think you're winning.
Sure.
Because that takes their entries out of the game. And if they're not getting entries, I'm not convinced that this particular Marty's team is running it from deep and playing in transitions to go and score tries. So I think if UCT are clever, they're going to find a way to try and probably win that territory battle, but certainly win the discipline battle. And then I think it becomes a bit harder for Stellenbosch.
Do you know what I saw on Monday with Shimlers is actually the amount, I think there was, maybe not have been strictly 50-22s, but MCA kicked quite a few of those. I think it was like 2 or 3 50-22s, which got them entries, but even if it weren't 50-22s, like I don't know, I felt like Shimlers their back 3 was struggling quite a bit. So MCA kicked and then it was a poor exit from Shimlers and then they were back sort of in decent positions. How important will that, if we go through, we spoke about it before, the experience of this UCT side, especially in that back 3, Reta Bilelo played his 3rd final now, Duran probably 3rd as well, and Makaza would be 3rd. How important is that, game management of that kicking battle? That's going to be surely a big one.
Yeah, very big. And I mean, UCT will sometimes have their 10 in backfield as well, so their ability to catch high balls will be big, because we know that Marty's will kick contestable kicks off the 9. So if UCT are able to handle that, the nice thing about Varsity Cup is that you can still bubble. So in pro rugby you can't bubble anymore. In Varsity Cup you can still bubble, and you get a free catch. So theoretically the contestable game shouldn't work as well. The catch is more protected, and you take it, you then get even more protected by the free catch. So if Varsity if UCT are taking those contestables, then I think they're in the mix, because they'll love that. They'll love the ball in a decent area, tap, play, and get into sort of loose rugby. I think UCT will lap that up. So I'm not sure whether Marty's will change. I don't think they will. I think they will say that Retabile Low, Nzokozo Makaza are short guys, Alex Vermeulen short guy, Duran Kovac short guy, and they'll probably say we'll back ourselves to put it in the air. Put pressure on them, let them drop it, win a scrum, try and scrum for a penalty, kick the corner, try and maul for another penalty. I think that's how they'll try and play.
On the opposite to that, a guy like Dylan Miller has been playing on the wing from his first year at Varsity. Do you think UCT will look maybe, I don't know if say target's maybe the wrong word, but look at that. So if they're saying Bile and Makaza are short guys, or Vermeulen are short guys, do you think they'll go, well, this guy's a first year, we kick on to him?
I don't know if he's
a good player though.
Yeah, so I think he's a very good player. I think UCT will look at their kicking game. I don't think they'll look at one particular player like a Dylan Miller. Are they going to try and work their game to isolate that specific guy? I'm not sure. I think that what UCT will probably try and do is isolate certain defenders. So they'll realise that some guys defend really, really well, and that Stellenbosch have got a massive breakdown threat. So they will probably be very wary of that. But then on 3rd or 4th phase, there might be a defender that they've identified on analysis that they'll say, cool, we want to try, and that's an opportunity where we can maybe get a line break through that guy or get a soft shoulder on that guy, and there won't be as much of a breakdown threat on him. So that's what they'll definitely do.
So how do you go about identifying that? Like, is that in play? Like, is that Alex Vermeulen going like, okay, we see his...
No, it'll be done on analysis. So, generally you will... Now it's the final, so you've got 9 games or 8 games to watch. So the coaching staffs of both teams will sit and they'll analyse what's happened, and then you see, what is the defensive shape, how do they like to attack, what is their kicking game, who goes where, and then you can see, right, they fold like this, so then on second phase or third phase they'll get there. And I think that's where Robbie Flex, he's a genius. He's very good at seeing those opportunities. And I think they will definitely be looking for opportunities. I think they also learned a lot from that first game against Stellenbosch.
What did they learn? Tell me what they learned.
I don't know because I haven't spoken to them. So
what would you have taken from it? You've been there.
Yeah, I thought UCT didn't use a lot of their bench. And they kept running. So I think Stellenbosch made over 200 tackles in that game. And I think UCT, if we'll look at that and say, hang on, we've got to attack slightly differently. Hang on, we made opportunities, so we're not going to suddenly not attack. But I think if you watch their semi-final against Tuks, there were quite a few chip kicks that were used, and I think they will look to turn Marty's a little bit more. That would be my thinking, and I think they might use their bench a little bit earlier. I've noticed that Stellenbosch only use a few of their bench.
Yeah, they don't. There's a couple of guys on Monday who sat.
I think I think there's a few splinters and bums in the Stellenbosch team, as I've seen throughout the season. So I think UCT will say, hang on, let's be brave with our bench, and that might help us in the last 20.
Do you think we're going to see any surprises from either team? So it's like, obviously they're not going to go. It's a final, so like they're not going to go strictly off their game plan, but anything that you think maybe like we could see in game that's going to be a little bit different. Like for instance, if Marty's get kick contestable, they tap and play, like they're not going to slow it down, like something like that.
Yeah, I don't think so from Stellenbosch. I think they've what have they've lost one game, they lost to Tuks. They've been good, they've been strong, they're quite tough to beat at the Danie Craven. I think for them to change their model, do fancy things would be madness. I don't think UCT will change too much either, to be honest. I know their DNA is to attack, we want to play, all of those things. So I think they will back themselves to do that. I think what you might see is a sneaky starter play. There might be something off a line out. I don't know exactly what they would do, but there might be something off a line out that they try. They might have identified something. They might target, if they believe the 9 or the 10 of Marty's are slightly weak defenders, which I don't think they are. But if they identify that, they might do it. But I don't think you'll see too many surprises. I have a feeling the game will be very physical. So when I watched Stellenbosch UCT at the Danie Craven last time, it was very physical game. The collisions were hard. UCT actually, I felt, matched Marty's, if not at times even dominated them in the one-on-one collisions. I have a feeling it's going to be very, very, very physical, and I think Marty's will want that. They'll want it to be attritional, lots of collisions, and I think UCT, if they're clever and realize what finals are about, which they are, and they've played enough recently to know, I think they will realize it's going to be a physical battle. And trying to play touch rugby against Stellenbosch and think we're going to run them around, it doesn't work. And they'll realize that they can do very well in the physical battle, and that they must do very well in the physical battle, and that will then allow them to play the UCT rugby.
Do you think there's going to be an element of like desperate, like the UCT, like there's guys who's desperate at UCT? We spoke about it earlier, the 17 guys who've been in finals before. I'm sure if you were at Varsity this year, UCT this year, there'd be an element, a little bit desperate to get it over the line.
I think so. I think there'll be some desperation. I've not been involved at all. My sense is, with Flecky at the helm, like things are probably a little bit more relaxed than maybe with me, and I think that's probably translated through to the team. So I think it could be quite helpful that you want to win. You don't want to have to like need to win. You don't want it to be like you're gritting your teeth so much. So I have a sense that UCT will want to win it, but I think that desperation might be nicely tempered. I suppose my thing, having watched UCT now this season, is that they have been quite they've at times been quite ill-disciplined and made some sloppy errors. And I think like in a final you don't want to do that because it could be a close game.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that they can be really nice and razor sharp focused and cut some of those errors as a UCT old boy. But I think the desperation might be tempered.
Sure.
It's my gut.
What makes...
I don't know if I'd be able to temper my desperation. Luckily, I've gone.
It would be quite a desperate day.
It would be a desperate day. Jeepers.
What makes winning in Stellenbosch so difficult? Maybe difficult's not the right word, but I mean, what? And I don't want to put you on the spot here, but like, what was your win percentage at the Danie Craven?
As a first team coach,
Yeah.
Naught.
How many did you play?
We played in 2020 and we lost. We played in 2023 and we lost. So both games we lost sort of like by a point or 2 points.
Yeah.
In fact, the 2023 one was disappointing because when we watched it on review, we were like, "Hang on, we should have won this game quite easily." We almost got to a tense. And I think what makes playing at Stellenbosch tough is that crowd is intimidating. The whole thing is intimidating.
Is it though? Do you think it is? Like, do you think you rock up there, you go like, I don't know, maybe like intimidating. I've got an idea of what intimidating actually means in my head, because I've also never played at that level, right? So it's like, do you think the guy, it's an intimidating...
I think so. I think you run on there and like it's also like quite maroon.
Yeah,
so they're quite clever, you know. It's like everything looks quite maroon and the crowd are cheering for them and I think it is quite intimidating. And I think the nature of the spectacle is, it's a final and all that kind of stuff. So I think it is intimidating. If I look at the losses that we had to them, both were narrow. They could have gone our way, but we didn't win, and maybe we should have in those times. So we were obviously doing something.
Yeah.
We weren't optimal, you know. So there's something there. It's a tough place to win. Not many teams go there and win. Bar like almost when they shouldn't. Maybe even Marty's get a bit relaxed.
I think like CUT
won there last year, and Shimler's obviously beat them in the semi-final. Shimler's had a good side. They were the eventual champions, you know. So I think Stellenbosch are beatable. I think there's fallibilities in their game, and that's not taking anything away from how good they are. And I think, but a final's a final there. And you want to say like just do the same thing, stick to your routine. You want to say all those nice things, but the reality is like, think about it. The whole week, your Instagram's buzzing. Yeah, guys are getting voted for player of the competition. You're forward of the competition. I mean, I can't fathom how that Grant de Jager is not on one of the lists. You know, or maybe he is. I don't think he is. No, I don't think he's not even in the back of it.
He might be on the player that rocks. I'm not too sure. We can get Jazzy to check Varsity Cup.
But like. So like there's a lot of, even though you want the distractions to go, there's a lot that goes on, you know. And sometimes teams make the mistake of like trying to do things differently. So you like, on a Sunday you would normally do this. Now for a final you do that. You know, and that, without saying it creates something's different about this game. So you've got to find that balance between you're motivated. I just hope. You know, we went through it. Sipho Dianase 3 finals, Rita Bilelo 3 finals, Duran Kufa 3 finals, and Ntokoza Makaza 3 finals, Inos and Diar 2 finals. I can go through it all. You would like to think that they'd sit down and say, like, guys, what did we learn from the previous finals? Yeah. Like, what did we take away from it? Because I don't think there's one player in the Marty's team who's played in the Varsity Cup Final.
Yeah.
So if experience is important, like it's only important if you learn from it.
Sure.
So that would be my interesting piece. Like there's a lot of players in that UCT team who've played in Varsity Cup Finals. There's none who've played in Varsity Cup Final as far as I can see. No, I don't think so. None from the Marty's.
Yeah. What do you think? So we speak about like experience. What do you think like a point of difference is going to be? So if Marty's win, what's the point of difference going to be that they had? And if UCT win, what's going to be the point of difference that they had? It's going to pinpoint one.
It's going to sound weird. I think the scrum is going to be big. Because if UCT can get dominance and scrum penalties, it takes a massive weapon away from Stellenbosch, because it allows you then to kick and allows you to get attacking lineouts. If UCT then win their attacking lineouts, in 2020 we lost the game by a point. We won 9 out of 18 lineouts. We won 50% ball and we almost won. And traditionally we've struggled there with our lineout. Marty's got a good lineout and a good contesting game. It's always said, those set pieces are going to make a massive difference, because if Marty's win the set piece battle, scrum penalty, more penalty, UCT are struggling.
Do you know what I thought was really good from UCT? Who did they play on? They was Shimlers,
They played Tucks.
I thought their Maldi was good.
Yeah,
really good.
I think they had to stop something like 11 mauls.
Yeah, and they were against a strong pack. Huge. That Oaks got the receding.
The one guy was balls. Yeah, taller than I do. Yeah, exactly. Cheapers. They did. I thought they did well. I mean, they gave some yards at the time. I think there was one where they got mauled over, but I remember the UCT played against Tucks in Cape Town, and Tucks mauled them.
Yes.
Pickham mauled them, like they've been mauled. So they've definitely worked on that. So I agree with you. I was impressed with how UCT have put intention in that, and you have to against Tucks, and you have to against Potch, and you have to against Shimlers, and you have to against Stellenbosch. So, I used to joke when, I think it was in the bubble year, I called it the Varsity Cup, because when you looked at the stats, those teams were mauling north of 60% of their lineouts. They were mauling anywhere on the field. So
anywhere on the field.
In the 2021 year, CUT and Potch were mauling north of 80% of their lineouts.
It was
everywhere. They were just mauling. So you have to be able to stop.
It's a long day at the office, as well if you can't.
It's a long day.
If you can't stop a maul.
In this competition, and I mean in rugby, but in this competition, you can't stop a maul. You're in trouble.
So we spoke a little bit about Flecky and now he's in charge there, and Kabamba. You've been there this week.
Yeah.
Intense?
Yeah, I think it is intense. I think you know what, Robbie, you don't want to leave a stone unturned.
Yeah.
So you're always thinking, what can I do? What can I do? And I think it was both years. It was 2023 and 2024. I phoned a guy called Brendan Fenter, who's a legend of rugby coaching, and I've worked with him before and I knew him, and I just phoned him like, what are you seeing, And Brendan gave me great advice. He said, Tom, what's your team about? So I was like, I don't know, what do you think? He's like, your team's got energy. He's like, I look at your team, they just got energy. He said, don't try and change too much in the week. Just realize they got energy and boost the energy. And I think yes, you'll look at all sorts of things, but I think Flecky's been around enough and he's an experienced guy. He's a pretty laid back guy, I think they're not going to make the mistake of trying to change too much or do too much. I think you've got to get the balance right of that, So, I was nervous, probably less so in the last final, funnily enough, as much as I wanted to win.
Yeah.
I remember having a pretty good night's sleep the night before, a good week, feeling quite excited to be up in Bloemfontein. Actually felt quite relaxed about it. And, people say, no, you weren't. But funnily enough, I was more relaxed during the game than I'd been through other games. Very disappointed afterwards, but I suppose it felt like we'd done all the work. Like there was nothing more we could do.
No.
And I think the difference last year, UCT had an absolute test match of a semi-final against Potch, and then had to turn around and play. And I remember a very experienced ex-provincial coach WhatsApped me and he said, how are you going to get your guys up again? And I was like, no, we'll be fine. But I think he might have been right. There might have been a little bit of that fatigue. I think UCT had a tough game, but it wasn't a test match against Tucks, was it? And I don't think Marty's had a test match either. So I think both teams will be fresher.
I agree. So do you think that freshness will allow these guys now to they're going to go play? Like it's not going to be like UCT going to bring energy because that's what they're about. Marty's are going to bring their more kicking. What do you think that's going to? I'll leave you with the final question here. And you can give us a score prediction and a prediction as to what's going to happen on Monday.
Cool. I think there will be some points.
Okay.
So I think it's going to be 26-23.
3 points in it.
UCT.
3 points in it.
I actually, my head, obviously my heart, but my head tells me I think UCT will take this. I think that little bit of experience. I think they've ironed out some of their flaws through the season. Traditionally, UCT will get better towards the end of the season of a campaign that's been for a long time.
Yeah.
And I think they will have. I think what I saw on Monday, they will be able to, I want to say get parity, if not even some. They'll do well in the scrum.
And so 2 players from each side that you think are going to go well.
Look, Van Heerden Smith is massive for Stellenbosch. So if UCT can put him under enough pressure, he's big. And I think the captain, Karel van der Merwe, because he's their line-out catalyst. If he has a good game, their line-out works, their scrum will probably work. He gets to a lot of work in the loose. So he's massive for them. I think UCT, I would say Keegan Blankenberg will need to have a good game. I think Keegan, if his throwing is on point and he gets around, he can poach, he can get around and attack. He can be magic.
Yeah. So
I think he'll be really, really important. And Alex Vermeulen, the 10 of UCT, I think he needs to have a good game. He mustn't try and do too much. But if he's just nice and calm and does what he knows how to do, he takes on the line a lot, he attacks. I guarantee you now, as true as the sun's coming up tomorrow, that they're going to try and hit Alex Vermeulen in the first 10 minutes. Fact.
Like they did with Hayes.
Like they did with Hayes a few years ago. There was money on it. Someone might take me to court for that, but we know that was true. They're going to try and hit Alex, but I think if Alex has a good game, he's got some good centres around him, got good forwards running off him, and I think blanks.
Thanks. TDS?
Thanks, Rob. Just quickly, who do you want to win? You're a Marty's alumni. You're a Marty's alumni, but you've also got friends at UCT. What do you think?
I want UCT to win purely because I know more of the boys there.
Okay.
And for instance, a Bile for me is just such a good dude, and McCarza, and those guys, I feel like they deserve deserves the wrong word, but I'd like them to win, because that'll be cool for them.
And then just a question for you, if UCT win, what will Gerrie Visser, the backs and skills coach, what do you think his energy will be like?
Massive. But I don't know what he'll do. I don't want to know. I don't want to be around. But I hope that he'll be somewhere in a pub in Stellenbosch. I'm sure he'll be in Daka.
Win or lose, I think he'll be there.
Are you going to be in Daka afterwards?
Let's see how we go.